last 5 meetings, we were discussing the topic of feasts for God's nation. What are the feasts for God's nation, originally established by God, and how it changed through the history, and what does God wait and actually from us, from his people, to restore. We probably came today to sixth lesson in the series, which will be probably the last one. And last time we were discussing something about the Easter and Lent and some changes which was happening to God's feasts in Middle Ages. And naturally we come to the most important probably holiday, most important feast in Western Christianity, which becomes kind of the most important for whole world now, which is named Christmas. And what do we know about this from Bible? Paradoxically, from Bible, we don't know anything about Christmas. And the simple reason is that the whole idea of Christmas is based upon celebrating the birthday of Jesus Christ. Bible does not mention when is the birthday, does not mention also any celebration of the birthday of Jesus Christ, or any celebration of birthday of any prophet, any person in the Bible of God's people. In fact, there are only 2 places in Bible when celebrating of birthday is mentioned. One place is in Genesis chapter 40. It is celebration of Pharaoh's birthday. You know, it is when Joseph was there in Egypt and Joseph was in prison. And so it's written in Genesis 40:20. And it came to pass the 3rd day, Pharaoh's birthday, that he made a feast unto all his servants, and so on. So it is pagan guy who celebrates his birthday. And another mentioning is Matthew 14:6. But when Herod's birthday was kept, the daughter of Herodias danced before them and pleased Herod. And we also know the story, where did it come eventually, but there are only 2 birthday celebrations in whole Bible, and both are of people who are, like Pharaoh is openly pagan, definitely. Herod, formally he was not so much pagan, but he is Edomite, he is not Israelite. He is person who accepted the Western Roman Greek culture, and he definitely celebrates birthday following that Greek and Roman culture. In Israelite culture, there is no such thing as celebrating birthday at all. In fact, in biblical culture, in culture of God's people, there is never such thing as celebrating any anniversary. No anniversaries of marriage, no anniversaries of birth, which is a birthday, were never celebrated. The concept of celebration was always to celebrate achievements in the life of the person, but not the anniversary of that achievement. For example, the birth of the child was definitely celebrated, and the next achievement of the child which was celebrated was weaning, when the child was taken away from breastfeeding, which is definitely the achievement. The child grew up to a certain age. Usually it was somewhere around 2 years old when the child was weaned. And for example, one of such cases we read in Genesis chapter 21, Genesis 21:8. It's about Isaac. The child grew and was weaned, and Abraham made a great feast the same day that Isaac was weaned. Another big achievement of personal life was bar mitzvah for boys. It is celebration of 13th, when the person reaches his 13th year. It is birthday of 13th year of age. And that is for boys. For girls, it was 1 year earlier. It's named bat mitzvah, and it is celebrated when the girl turns 12. This age of turning 13 or age of turning 12, was celebrated as a celebration of achievement of spiritual and intellectual maturity, when the person becomes responsible for observing God's law and carries his responsibility or her responsibility for girls before God individually. Before age of 13 for boys and before age of 12 for girls, it was counted always that the child is too little and it's more responsibility of parents. Even if the child makes sin, it is more problem of the parent, not of the child, because the child is too little. But after this age, the person reaches that maturity. So interestingly, in Bible, we can tell that it is Jewish tradition, bar mitzvah or bat mitzvah, but we see some hints in Bible on it. For example, right before his bar mitzvah, meaning turning 13, when Jesus was 12, we see that Jesus is lost in Jerusalem and comes to temple. And in the temple, he first time sees with his own eyes what is being done there, and he hears the teaching of teachers. He actually puzzles the teacher with his own comments and questions. We read in Ellen White's Desire of Ages that coming to the temple was crucial and important for Jesus in order to understand his mission of salvation of humanity. And it's not coincidence that it happens at the age of 12, meaning it happens right before Jesus's bar mitzvah was celebrated. And we know it definitely was celebrated when he turned 13, because in times of Jesus, Jews did observe that principles. So that is about celebrating birthday. Yeah, so it's not celebrated every year, and we know for sure from Bible and from the cultural context that Jesus did not celebrate his birthday every year, and neither did any other prophets. This is a culture of other nations. We saw it was common among Egyptians, so it was common among Greeks and Romans. That's why Herod was doing it. So similar thing actually is with marriages. I know that in Western world, it is very popular to celebrate anniversaries of marriages, but it was never so in biblical culture also. There was a marriage celebration, definitely, and it was much bigger thing than it is in modern Western world. The marriage celebration was in two parts, the two marriages actually, which usually in English are translated as betrothal and marriage, but biblical understanding, it's not a betrothal because it's really a marriage. It's a full-scale thing. It's legal and it's before God. It's a first part of marriage when the husband already receives his wife and makes a payment for her. It's named erusin. And erusin usually was made even before the girl reaches that age of maturity. And when the girl reaches the age of maturity, the second part of marriage is celebrated, nisuin. And after that, the husband already can take her home and start living with her. And we see in the Bible how it is really reflected in a relationship of Christ with his church, because the church is actually described as a wife of Christ. I know usually in English language we tell bride because we take that idea of first part of marriage being betrothal, but in the biblical context, it is marriage. Because he already paid for his wife. We know that Jesus paid with his blood. Yes, so he first pays for his wife, and when the church, his wife reaches a maturity, he comes to take her into house of his husband. That's completely the language of marriage in Bible. Similar, we see, for example, one of such examples in life of Jacob, when Jacob talks to Laban about taking his daughters, and he doesn't have anything to pay with, so he promises to work. But that's how the marriage was done. So it is in two parts. It's first paying for the wife and then waiting for her to mature and then taking her. So the celebration, let's go back to celebration of birthday. There's no such thing as celebration of birthday in Bible, of course. And I mentioned that Bible does not endorse the celebration of anniversaries in general. You can ask then, so what about this every year celebration of certain feasts of by religious principle, like Sukkot or Passover, because Passover, for example, is celebrated as an anniversary of the Exodus from Egypt, or Sukkot is celebrated as a commemoration of that they lived in wilderness for a long time before coming to the promised land. In Leviticus chapter 23, we see that these celebrations were done as education. So first of all, of course, we understand that those celebrations, those feasts had a prophetic meaning. They had prophetic meaning for the future. So they were not celebrated just like anniversaries of what happened in the past, but they were celebrated also as pointer to what will happen in the future as a prophecy. And as a prophetical meaning, it had to be celebrated every year for educational purpose. Leviticus 23, verse 42 and 43, I read, you shall dwell in booths 7 days. That's about Sukkot, the Feast of Tabernacles. You shall dwell in booths 7 days. All that are Israelites born shall dwell in booths, that your generations may know that I made the children of Israel to dwell in booths when I brought them out of the land of Egypt. I am the Lord your God. So it was given so that each new generation, all children will learn what it is and will experience it personally. So we talked that feasts of God are either prophetic or educational, and or there is such thing as celebrating of milestones in the life of person. In this picture, there is no such thing as celebration of birthday every year, and that's why we don't see such thing in the Bible at all. So we should probably learn to think in biblical way about different things, including about celebration. Now, what is wrong about celebrating Christmas in general on 25th December? Yes, it's kind of a date, but does it have some foundation? Biblically, not. And if we look through historical perspective, well, historians of early church were writing, there was never in the beginning, first 200 years, there were never an idea that Christ was born in December. For example, here on the screen, you can see a quote from Clement of Alexandria. It is something written in year 2000 of Common Era, 200 of Common Era, meaning year 200 after Christ. These are those who have determined not only the year of our Lord's birth, but also the day. And they say that it took place in the 28th year of Augustus and in the 25th day of Pahon, which is Egyptian month. 25th of Pahon is roughly May 20 in our calendar. And then he writes, and treating of his passion with very great accuracy, some say that it took place in 16th year of Tiberius on the 25th of Famenot, which is March 21, which we know roughly that's the time when the Passover was celebrated. And others on 25th of Farmuti, April 21, and others say that on 19th of Farmuti, which is April 15, the Savior suffered. Further, others say that he was born on 25th or 25th of Farmuti, which is April 20 or 21. So we see that the early historian Clement of Alexandria puts the birth of Christ somewhere in April or May. The earliest mention of December 25 as Jesus' birthday is in year 354 AD. It is in Philocalian calendar. It's already Byzantine period or like late period of Roman Empire, more than 350 years after his birth. And it is not based on anything except for current practices in that time already in 4th century. I should mention, just to be just, I should mention that first mention of month of December without, not specifically December 25, but just month of December was first mentioned around 202 AD. Quite late also, but it was mentioned by Bishop Hippolytus of Rome. And he, according to his calculations, what he writes, the first coming of our Lord that in the flesh, in which he was born in Bethlehem, took place 8 days before the calendars of January, a Wednesday in 42nd year of reign of Augustus. That is, calendars of January is January 1. So 8 days before that will bring us to December 22. That was Hippolytus writes in year 202. Again, what does he base it upon? There is nothing in the Bible. and to the best of our knowledge, there is nothing in history. But there are other celebrations which were in December, which definitely the Christmas evolved in connection with. And one of them, the biggest celebration in the Roman Empire in December was Saturnales, which was a Roman pagan feast, which was originally starting on December 17, and it lasted usually 3 days, but in later times in Roman Empire, they extended it to 7 days celebration, which was bringing it to December 24. So it was usually finishing on December 24. So it is interesting that right after celebration of Saturnalia, they did celebrate Natalis Solis Invicti, which is the birth of invictable sun. That's what the name of the feast means. That was a Roman feast of winter solstice. We know that December 25 is a time of the year when the daytime starts diminishing and starts growing. And that was celebrated right after Saturnalia. Saturnus, to whom Saturnalia was dedicated, was the deity of time. So looks like December 25 was chosen this day in connection to these celebrations in Roman Empire, and in connection to another celebration which comes from East. It came to East, to Rome, just like Christianity came to East. Actually, that celebration came even from further east, from Persian Empire. At that time, it was named Parthian Empire, which is still Persian. Parthia was the territory of modern Iran, and the main deity of that period of time in that territory was Mitra. The cult of Mitra evolved as a local Persian cult in connection to some other cults, like cult of Attis in Asia Minor, for example, and some cults of Mesopotamia. So Mithraism was a relatively new religion which evolved in Persia and Middle East around 1st century AD, or slightly before it. But in 1st century AD, we see how it starts taking, I apologize, around 1st century AD, it starts taking more place in a Roman Empire. Mithraism became very popular religion in the Roman army. Most of legionnaires did practice Mithraism as religion. I will not go to the details of that religion. That's definitely not our point. Who is interested, it's very easy to find information. But the interesting fact is that Mitra, the central deity of Mithraism, was born on December 25. So it is not coincidence that when another religion expands in Roman place, it fills the same niche, including the already practiced and very favorite celebration on December 25, which was originally the celebration of invictible sun, S-U-N, because of winter solstice, right after Saturnalia. The birthday of Mitra was there on December 25, and then with Christianity expanding, the birth of Christ was assigned to that day. We see how Satan actually uses to drive a religion of God into corners in which he wants it to be. And people somehow follow, starting to ignore the feasts and the principles of God's religion, including feasts and celebration, and starts taking and recycling something from the previous religion. When Israelites in times of Joshua were stepping into the promised land, God was explicitly telling them not try to recycle the cults of paganism which you conquer. You should destroy every temple, you should cut down every grove, all those woods and trees of religious meaning which pagans had in promised land. Don't recycle them for my religion. What is unclean cannot be used to celebrate God's anything about God. But that's how it happens in church, because probably there is something which people like and they don't want to abandon easily. And one of such symbolics in Christmas definitely is Christmas tree. And definitely in Bible, no matter how you read, you will never find any celebration connected to tree and birthday. But there are such celebrations quite ancient, much more ancient than Mithraism. There are celebrations which date to times of Old Testament. In fact, cutting down a young evergreen tree was a way of commemorating the death of Nimrod or death of Tammuz in Mesopotamia. It was premature death which people were weeping about. We spoke our last lecture about Lent as weeping for Tammuz, which is described in books of prophets. And one of symbolics was cutting down an evergreen tree, symbolizing that like Tammuz or Nimrod is young and strong as evergreen tree and dies prematurely. So they're cutting that evergreen tree and making celebration around it. The cult was very ancient, and it was known in Old Testament times. It's known even nowadays for scholars as a part of occult practices in ancient Middle East, but we can see it in Bible in several places. Where evergreen trees are mentioned in religious context. For example, as early as in times of Moses, in Deuteronomy chapter 12, it is mentioned. Deuteronomy 12:2. God tells to his people, "You shall utterly destroy all the places wherein the nations which you shall possess served their gods, upon the high mountains, upon the hills, and under every green tree." This phrase, every green tree, in Hebrew, it's koletz ra'anan, which means the whole tree is green, which refers again to the tree whole time. All time is green. It's not about the trunk of the tree being green. It's the whole koletz ra'anan means the whole of time, all season, all year around being green. The same later, when Israelites already drift even further away from God's principles, it is mentioned, for example, in 2 Kings 16:4. About one of Kings' thoughts, he sacrificed and burnt incense in the high places and all the hills and under every green tree. Again, this koletz ra'anan, the tree which is evergreen, green all time. In Jeremiah 3:13, we read, Jeremiah 3:13, "Only acknowledge thy iniquity, that thou hast transgressed against the Lord thy God, and hast scattered the way to the strangers under every green tree, and you have not obeyed my voice, says the Lord." Again, this phrase, every green tree, means koletz ra'anan, whole tree is green, meaning the whole tree which is green all the time. The symbolics of evergreen tree in Tammuz and Nimrod's cult is not exceptional. It is very common in many cults of Middle East, even including cults in Asia Minor. For example, in Phrygia is a territory in Asia Minor, modern Turkey. There were several deities which we know. We don't know too much about Phrygians. For some reason, they didn't leave lots of books from them, but we know that one of their deities, Attis, and his symbolics was pine tree. And pine trees were also established as, I apologize, but phallic symbol in relation to the cult of Attis, this deity. We have lots of archaeological artifacts. And if I share my screen here, I can demonstrate. For example, this is from Assyria. This is a cylinder seal the picture which comes from Cylinder Seal, and here you see the so-named Tree of Life, which is in connection to some Assyrian cult. This is another one, also from Assyria, and this is a bas-relief from Nimrud, ruins of very ancient Assyrian capital city, which was capital of Assyria before Nineveh, the city Nimrud. This one is even more ancient. Here there is a picture of Sargon I, which was Akkadian king, which stands before the Tree of Life. And Akkadian king was before Assyrians. Akkadian, the empire of Sargon was before Assyrian empire. So it's very ancient thing, the symbolics of tree. Over here, you see it more to east. This is a relief from, it is on the walls of Persepolis palace. Persepolis or Pasardana, it was a capital of Persian Empire. And this carving in stone was done in the period of Achaemenid Empire, which is like 5th, 4th century BC. And you see the symbolics of tree here in the some religious procession, which is shown in the bigger picture of that carving. This is a picture which is taken as a copy of also carving in stone, which is very ancient, and it's very difficult to distinguish it nowadays because it all eroded, but the specialists were able to reproduce it as a picture using some graphics and recognition of those small fractures and remnants of the carving in the stone. And here you see Nimrod. Nimrod, you know him from Bible, from chapter 10 of Genesis, who was like the founder of ancient Mesopotamian kingdom. And he was a famous religious figure in Assyrian and Mesopotamian in general, but mostly Assyrian cult. And here he is shown with two of his symbols, the deer, the elk, and another symbol is a tree. What is in his left hand is a tree. Actually, that's the picture, which doesn't look very much like a tree, but it is. Here are more, again, Nimrod and evergreen tree, other pictures. Here is another one. Well, if you search for them, you will find them a lot, mostly in Mesopotamia, but you did see, I found something in Persian Empire, and here is bad quality, but this one actually is not Mesopotamia, it is Egypt. And it is from Papyrus of Nebseni. Here you also see the same motif of the Tree of Life, which is also kind of a decorated tree. And in Egypt, also that cult was very well known. So we should not be surprised that this thing, together with celebration on December 25, did penetrate into Christianity. What surprises is actually that Christians were so prone to take it and accept it, while God was explicitly telling in Bible so many times that celebration with evergreen trees is something which he was telling to destroy. Well, Adventists most probably who like the idea of celebration of Christmas with Christmas tree, they refer to a couple quotes by Ellen White. Those quotes were published in Review and Herald. One was in 1879, another one was in 1884. I can read both of them because I tried to study this question from all sides and to evaluate pros and cons. So in Review and Herald in December of 1879, it was written, God will be well pleased if on Christmas each church will have a Christmas tree on which shall be hung offerings, great and small, for these houses of worship. And in 1884, also in December, it's written, also was published in Review and Herald. Let the several churches present to God Christmas trees in every church, and then let them hang thereon the fruits of beneficence and gratitude, offering coming from willing hearts and hands, fruits that God will accept as an expression of our faith and our great love to him for the gift of his son, Jesus Christ. Let the evergreen be laden with fruit, rich and pure and wholly acceptable to God. Shall we not have such a Christmas as heaven can approve? Well, there are several questions which I can raise according to those two things. First of all, why do we think that we can make doctrinal things or doctrinal changes following publications in a magazine? Review and Herald is a magazine. The publications there was an article, even if it was written by Ellen White, we cannot tell that it was Spirit of Prophecy. First of all, because Spirit of Prophecy, let us not forget, is not every writing of Ellen White. Spirit of Prophecy is the name of several specific books. There are 4 volumes of Spirit of Prophecy, which Ellen White wrote. There is also a volume of Early Visions, which Ellen White wrote. Those are books where Ellen White was writing, God showed to me this, and she describes what God shows to her. Or Ellen White writes that God reveals to me this, and she describes what. Over here in those articles, I checked, there is nothing which tells that God shows or God reveals. These are ideas of a person. So every publication in Review and Herald cannot be seen as Spirit of Prophecy. Of course, we should also compare it with the Bible. And if we see even minor discrepancy between the Bible and article in Review and Herald, like what should win, Bible or Review and Herald? Especially if it's nowhere Ellen White states that it was a message from God. So it was her opinion, or even opinion which passed through some editions of the magazines. Another thing, this recommendation was for specific place and time, right? Yeah, obviously. This was timely publication in a magazine. It's definitely for place and time. So it cannot be taken as a doctrine. It cannot be taken indefinitely. It cannot be taken everywhere. So another thing, it wasn't about celebrating Christmas as a feast. It was about putting Christmas tree and using it as an instrument to get offerings. And here comes another question of mine. Is it possible to get offerings without this symbolics? If we know that it is pagan symbolics, why do we need this symbol to get offerings from people, or people can make offerings without it? That's why it looks very fishy. And here I want just to bring another quote from Ellen White, and this time that is from the book of Spirit of Prophecy, or more specifically from Patriarchs and Prophets, a book. It's a Patriarchs and Prophets 458. It was by associating with idolaters and joining in their festivities that the Hebrews were led to transgress God's law and bring his judgments upon the nation. So now it is by leading the followers of Christ to associate with the ungodly and unite in their amusements that Satan is most successful in alluring them into sin. Come out from among them and be ye separate, says the Lord, and touch not the unclean. God requires of his people now as great a distinction from the world in customs, habits, and principles as he required of Israel anciently. Patriarchs and Prophets 458. That is a text which actually was stated to be a revelation from God. Now, when we finished now revising the main feast and main celebration which crept into Christianity, let us consider several ideas which should be weighted and evaluated about celebrating them, to do or not to do. And the very first idea was, can we redefine symbols of pagan cult? Okay, because nobody pretty much argues that December 25 is a made-up day, yes? Or nobody argues that Christmas tree is not Christian symbol, it's not biblical. Nobody argues about that. But many people argue that we can hijack pagan symbols. Those things were in pagan cults, but Christianity or church hijacked it, and now we use it to celebrate our God. This idea is not very new. It did exist in ancient time. And one of demonstrations of this idea was actually a golden calf. If you open Exodus chapter 32, that's about making the golden calf, and you read what Aaron tells before the celebration, Exodus 32:5, Aaron tells, and when Aaron saw, he built an altar before it, meaning before the golden calf, and Aaron made proclamation and said, tomorrow feast to the Lord. And the word Lord, which is translated into English as Lord, is the name, the holy name of God, Yahweh. So that's what Aaron tells. So he made that golden calf. He realizes this is pagan symbolics, something what God did not tell him to do. It came from ideas of people, and he wants to hijack it. He wants to rededicate it or recycle it for God. We know God's position regarding this. God did not accept it. So we cannot tell that we celebrate God through pagan symbols if we take this pattern from Exodus 32. And in Ezekiel 44, God explicitly tells, Ezekiel 44:23, they shall teach my people, and he speaks about priests and teachers and the people in the nation, and they shall teach my people difference between the holy and profane, and cause them to discern between the unclean and the clean. So for God, this distinction is very important. God is not about to accept what is profane and fill it with new meaning. God usually does not do such thing. We don't see it in the Bible. Another idea, we still can use it for witnessing. And here there is actually something important. Yeah, we should be ready to use whatever we see in this world to witness about the truth. And those celebrations, pseudo-Christian celebrations, when we see them, we should try to use them to witness and to share the truth. Look, in John chapter 17, Jesus Christ tells, I read John 17, 15th verse, and then, I pray not that thou shouldest take them out of the world, but that thou shouldest keep them from the evil. They are not of the world, even as I am not of the world. Sanctify them through thy truth. Thy word is truth. So, Gentile feasts are environment in which we are placed. Should we try to use element of this environment to testify about truth? Yes, of course. But what we should not do, we should not allow that environment to come inside us, to influence us, to even to become our own culture or our own holidays. So if I am placed in an environment where there are some pagan cults, I should try to use those pagan cults to witness to people, but I should not make those beliefs or those holidays my own. We could navigate them as a part of strategy, but we should not contribute to them. We should not do anything to increase them, to make them bigger, or to accept them. That's the difference. In general, can truth be witnessed through lies? Probably not, but we can take lies and show in lies why lie is lie, and that can bring to witnessing truth. When missionaries were coming to different nations, different pagan nations, let us think about apostles or early missionaries after that, they were never recycling pagan feasts for Christianity. They were trying to remove them and to replace them with something biblical. Message from God should always be something very different from what is in the world. On another side, we can observe that Satan did not reuse much of Lord's feasts, but he did a big work to replace them. During our last 5 studies, and today 6, we saw how Satan, in this reworking, he changed the days of the calendar and he changed names. For example, he replaced name of Pesach, or Passover at least, he replaced with Easter, or he changed the day of Passover also to another day. He changed the day of trumpets with Rosh Hashanah for Jews, for example, made it a new year. So although the new year, according to Bible, should be in March. So he changes the days and he changes names and he changes symbolic. So Satan changes everything. Should we be more tolerant to Satan's practices than Satan is to God's practices? Jesus tells in Mark 2:22, and no man putteth new wine into old bottles, else the new wine does burst the bottles, and the wine is spilled, and the bottles will be marred. But new wine must be put into new bottles. That's what Jesus was telling about the teaching and people, but of course it's related to teaching and practices of people. We cannot put new meaning or meaning from God into practices which God did not create. Another argumentation is we can just have some fun. Children like it, people like it, why not to have some fun? Like God's people should not be always very serious. We can have some fun, and yes, definitely we can. Let us not forget, if you remember, in 1 hour meeting, we discussed that Lord's feasts actually take 70 days in the calendar. So if we want to have fun, there are 70 days in the calendar. Like every 5th day of the year is a day of some feast of the God. Most of them are Shabbats, of course, but there are many feasts which are not Shabbat, but there are some calendar days. Yes, like Passover, Shavuot, Sukkot, etc. And those celebrations is a lot of time to have fun, a lot of time to share something with our unbelieving friends and neighbors, to show something to them, how you can celebrate in a way different from the worldly way. There are many things which children definitely will like. I can tell from my experience that building a sukkah, which is a tabernacle for the Feast of Tabernacles, building a sukkah and celebrating inside it during 1 week, 7 days, according to God's word, eating inside the sukkah, building it is very fun. And it's much more fun than decorating a tree, because you really build a whole new thing. It's like gazebo, which you build and establish before your house, in front of your house or in your backyard. It's really fun. It's very interesting. It can be challenging when you do it first time, but then it becomes easier and much more entertaining. And children do like it, and it changes a lot because you kind of, if you can decorate it, you can eat inside this, you can invite your friends, and by inviting your friends, you can share with them many things, because sukkah doesn't signify only historical thing that Israel's leaving Egypt, going to Promised Land, lived in wilderness. But we discussed, when we discussed the importance of Sukkot, it also symbolizes the millennium kingdom, when Christ will come and will take us from our homes from earth to special celebration and the whole eternity. Sukkot is a celebration of time after second coming. So there's a lot to share and to celebrate. So if we just want to have some fun, it is not excuse to take pagan holidays, because there are God's holidays, which can bring even more fun and even more meaning. Can a nation, if church is a nation waiting fulfillment of God's prophecies, can such nation ignore Lord's feasts connected to these prophecies and instead celebrate feasts of Gentiles? I'm sure it cannot. And at the very end, I wanted to share again from Bible, from Jeremiah 2:13. There is an important prophecy or statement of God. Jeremiah 2:13, for my people have committed 2 evils. They have forsaken me, the fountain of living water, and hewed them out cisterns, broken cisterns, that can hold no water. The source of true water the source of truth is God. And people make cisterns and try to fill them, and they make it according to their designs, and these cisterns are broken, cannot hold any water. And God tells that these are two evils, living the true things and building up the false things. These are two evils. So something similar started to happen in history with feasts of God, when God's people forsaking meaningful Lord's feasts and accepting false ones, because meaningful Lord's feasts have spiritual meaning and prophetic meaning, but the false ones, they do not have that meaning. And we try to put it inside, but it leaks, it doesn't hold. It's not designed for it. That's probably the topic for today. And let us be separate, very separate from the world, and not touch unclean things, as is told in 2 Corinthians chapter 6.